welcome to the Summer to Evolve brought to you by Jobvite. I'm Kelly Lavin, and I'm super excited to be here with all of you today for this interesting discussion around recruiting roles and skills. So I'm going to go ahead and get to the next slide. So I am very excited to be chatting today with Bridget Boyle and Kris Dunn. I have, been fans of both of them for quite some time, and so I'm excited about what this discussion today is going to bring. They are going to share a lot of awesome insight with each and every one of you. As a reminder, the Summer to Evolve is 12 weeks, 45 plus sessions, and 5 types of content. And the best thing about it is it's all free, so you cannot beat that. You can come out of this summer just by attending the Summer to Evolve with all sorts of new spiffy recruiting skills. And so I'm very excited to be a part of it and to share some with you today. And we are in week 3, so we are in recruiting roles and skills, and we have one more session tomorrow. This is a shorter week for the Summer to Evolve because of the 4th of July holiday coming up, but you will, go back to our kind of regular full schedule next week with talking about candidate communications. And here's the lineup for this week. So yesterday was a session that is available for you all to watch. It's recorded. And then today's call will also be recorded. And then tomorrow, do not miss our own Jobvite's own Lacey. And she's going to be talking about improving collaboration and communication with hiring managers. So that is not to be missed. That's a critical role for, a critical dynamic for recruiters to build relationships with. And so as a reminder, in order to get signed up for one of those sessions or to watch one of those sessions, just go to thesummertoevolve.com, and it's super easy. You just register for a session, and then you can also find the links to sessions that have been recorded that you may have missed that you can watch there as well. So as a reminder, I am Kelly Lavin. I'm the SVP of Talent at Jobvite. A little bit about my background. I was on the co-founding team at Canvas, which was later acquired by Jobvite, and now I'm part of the big Jobvite family, which I'm super excited about. I have 20 years of HR experience. I was also the co-founder of the Next Gen Talent program. It's a program designed to build business skills in early career HR professionals. So I'm very passionate about the talent space and super happy to kind of continue to build it out and make it the type of powerful space I know that it is. You can find me on LinkedIn at KWall7. And before we get started, if you have questions, you can ask via the Q&A panel. Any social insights, you can tag hashtag JobviteS2E. And as I mentioned before, our session is being recorded, and all registrants will receive a link to the recording via email. And then recordings can also be accessed at summertoevolve.com. So without further ado, let me get started with introducing our first guest, Bridget Boyle. So Bridget, thank you. Welcome, Bridget. Can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you.
Awesome, and I can hear you as well, so we're good to go. So Bridget is the head of people and culture at Roche Diagnostics. She has 25 plus years in HR. I'm sure she's seen a lot in that time, and she's seen a lot of evolution of the function, as I have. She has her master's in human resources management, and there's a little link to connect with Bridget on LinkedIn as well. And this is my favorite part of all, the fun summer favorite. So tell me a little bit about your vacation spots. So any place with a beach, sunshine, umbrella drinks, favorite umbrella drinks, or all of them?
Really, pina colada is my favorite by far.
I am right there with you, Bridget. I'm very excited about pina coladas as well. And then what about the outdoor activities? Do you have a preference there, like archery, running, hiking? Are you pretty intense?
Running, hiking, wakeboarding. Yeah, just love being outside. Bike riding, I love.
Awesome. And your favorite summer movie is Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. Is that a book as well, right?
It is a book, and I mean, it's one of my favorite movies, and so I would watch it in the summer, the winter, but I just love it because, it's a great story, and it has beautiful scenery, and I've watched it with my girls several times.
That's fun. I have not watched that, so that is going to be on my list for this summer. I am also a fan of drumsticks. Anything with chocolate is amazing. Do you like the peanuts or no peanuts?
I do. I like the peanuts. And then, of course, just like everyone, my favorite is that very last bite of the cone at the very bottom.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing. Have you had the mini drumsticks that you can find at the grocery store?
I
mean,
a little baby one. Why buy the minis? Why waste your time with the minis?
I know, you just have to eat 2 or 3 of them to equal one big one. So you might as well just get the big ones. I totally agree with you. And then you prefer the beach. Do you have a favorite beach that you've been to?
No, there's hardly a beach I don't love. I've been to Maui. I've been to Florida lots of times, Cabo. So yeah, just really enjoy. Again, I grew up in Arizona and Texas, and so being in Arizona, right, you didn't spend a whole lot of time anywhere near a beach, but just the sunshine, the sand in your toes, and just being able to hear the ocean, it's just very relaxing.
It sounds amazing right about now, since I've been in my house in Indiana for 4 months. Well, that's awesome. Well, welcome, Bridget. We are so excited to have you here, and I know you're going to have some amazing insights for us on this topic. So let's go ahead. Oh, yep, you bet. So let's go ahead and move on to introduce Kris Dunn. So Kris, can we get Chris's camera and audio and all of that good stuff turned on? Welcome, Kris. So Kris is partner in CHRO at Kinetics. He is a blogger for Fistful of Talent, and he also found Fistful of Talent and HR Capitalist. I actually am pretty sure I'm one of your first 10 fans, like blog fans on the HR Capitalist. I've been following Kris for a long time, and so he's one of those like HR famous people for me. So I'm very excited to be interviewing Kris today. He's also the author of 9 Faces of HR, and he has held various HR leadership positions. You can see his little LinkedIn link there. And then let's get to summer favorites. So tell me about this favorite vacation, Kris.
Hey, well, first of all, Kelly Lavin, great to join you. Hi, Bridget. Hi, everybody. Kris Dunn. So favorite vacation is, I love the beach, like Bridget, Kelly. But my favorite vacation is Highway 1 in California. And the way I like to do it is I've never done it from LA all the way, 8 hours, north. But my favorite way to do it is to get on Highway 1, heading north with no hotel reservations. And just figure it out. It's like true, not vagabond, but just kind of exploring, if you know what I mean. No plans.
Awesome. Have you ever had to sleep on the beach because there were no hotels that had vacancies?
It's interesting you say that. I have found myself north of San Francisco running low on gas, and it gets fairly remote on Highway 1. And for it to be questionable if the next town was going to have a hotel room, but I've never been out. I've always been in.
Awesome. And then your favorite summer movie is Caddyshack. That is a classic for sure. I'm sure that you share that as a favorite movie with a lot of people. So ice cream truck order. Now, is this an exercise push-up, or is this the push-up that I remember from my childhood? Like, do you do a push-up every time you see an ice cream truck?
Kelly, thanks for noticing the guns under the shirt. No, it's the orange push-up.
The orange.
So when it's hot outside, that's the only time I would order that. but it hits the spot.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, when Bridget talked about like the last centimeter of the cone, I felt hopelessly out-ordered. So if Bridget and I were at the truck and she was enjoying that last like half inch of that cone, I'd look at my push-up and I'd be like, I got out-ordered.
All that you would be able to do was kind of hold up your little plastic umbrella, and she'd be enjoying the rest of her phone, which I know. This I always feel like with the push-up, it never lasts long enough. Like there's just clearly not enough product in there. I mean, it's delicious, there's no doubt, but there is absolutely not enough product in there from my perspective.
Absolutely.
And then beaches. You guys share that in common as well. So you love the beach as well. Do you have a favorite beach that you've been to?
Yeah, and I bet Bridget's been somewhere in this area, coming from Indiana down to Florida. So my favorite beach is a highway stretch called 30A, and it's between Destin and Panama City. Thank you, Bridget. I'm sure she stayed somewhere there. Like places you could go there include Seaside, Rosemary Beach, and it's really getting built up, super nice. And literally, I would go there rather than any beach in America. And been to Hawaii, that includes Hawaii. It's just, that's a great stretch of beach. Bridget, do you agree with me?
Totally. I've spent many, many spring breaks and fall breaks there. Yep.
Awesome.
Well, that is great. And I am super excited to chat with both of you today. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that you guys can all just see us. And I think we're good to go. So let's get started with our fun discussion around recruiting roles and all of that good stuff. So Bridget, let's get started with you. You know, from your slide, you've been in the talent space for 25 plus years now. How have you seen the role of the recruiter evolve over those 25 years?
Wow, you don't even give me a softball to start, huh? Okay, well, I mean, you know, it has evolved quite a bit. I mean, from when I first started in HR, I actually started in a recruiting function, and it was very transactional. And I would say, you know, it was all about time to fill. It was about, you know, closing the deal. And it was just, again, transactional, very little kind of intimate connection with candidates. It was very canned responses, copying, pasting. And I would say now, you know, my recruiters, I probably talk to on a daily basis, and talking to them about what's happening in the business. They're interacting with business leaders, you know, on a daily, weekly basis, trying to listen and learn what's happening in the business. It's very strategic, and often our conversations that are involving people and culture are around talent. How are we attracting the right talent? Do we have the right talent? How are we building capabilities? Who are the hidden talents in our organization that we need to get to know better? And the recruiters are at the center of all of those discussions.
Yep, absolutely. How about you, Kris? What have you seen kind of as the evolution over time of the recruiter's role?
Well, I absolutely agree with Bridget. And I think for a lot of the people that are on the call today, you know, we have a significant population of recruiters and recruiting leaders who probably the last recession is a distant memory. And I would say we had the residual effect, meaning that a lot of hiring managers thought it was an employer's market, probably till 2012, maybe 2013. But since then, it's clearly been a candidate's market. You know, times have changed now, but I think that kind of whole decade we've been through has really risen the need for recruiters to not only be good recruiters, and Bridget did a nice job mentioning that at one point it was pretty transactional, but they've had to really become influencers. And I think influencing skills, be it candidates, be it hiring managers, be it the third interviewer that was just supposed to have feedback but's trying to block a hire, I was like, all of these skills have just really increased in their complexity. And it's the best job in the world. And some days it might feel like the worst job in the world.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that, just as the talent function as a whole has evolved into really having to get to know the business, the talent acquisition function is no different. And I think it's super important, that they are able to understand what they're selling, who they're selling it to, in order to attract the right talent into the organization. Now, what about, the talent team? So, I think, over the years, I've seen, one recruiter used to wear all hats, and it kind of, was their job to sell. Marketing wasn't as important maybe then, 20 years ago as it was today from a talent function perspective. How do you see recruiting teams kind of, what are some of the critical components of a recruiting team now, and kind of what are organizations expecting out of the function as a whole versus just the recruiter's skills? Either one of you has insights. Great.
I have a couple of ideas. I mean, definitely our recruiting function has been an area of investment for us. When I think about over the years how it's grown, and that's because our leaders see the value in that. Technology is critical. And so when I think about the technology that's available and out there, everything through Jobvite and all of the other companies that are out there, that's what helps us, because I really want the recruiters to be able to spend as much quality time connecting with the right candidates, spending time with them, getting to know them, and selling Roche. I don't want them spending a lot of time at the top of the funnel. And so that's, that investment in technology is critical. And again, we didn't have that years ago. The other thing is, oftentimes the recruiter is the one that is picking up these key insights. And so they are spending time asking a lot of probing questions to help us make sure, are we making the right decision? Are they making the right decision? What else do we need to know as we're trying to woo these candidates either to Indianapolis or to our company? Again, freeing them up to spend the right time on the right people is so important.
Yeah, and I would add, Bridget, that when you think about yourself as a talent leader, that same technology stack has to enable you and the people that work for you really to manage requisitions, manage goals for your recruiters to make sure you've got the right coverage. And in addition to just using technology to kind of move people from the top of the funnel as far down as possible, also giving you data to give you the best strategic view of what's going on in your practice so you can make the adjustments. I think we do a good bit of work at Kinetics with some of our clients, like related to just like thinking about what's going on from a recruiting perspective. And one thing's for sure, I think you would agree with this, Bridget, that if someone like you and the people that work for you don't have the right data, however you say that, you won't be able to make the right strategic decisions related to where you push your recruiters, what they're working on, spend that you make in addition to an ATS. You won't have the data you need. So I think the right system's super critical for that. And by the way, Kelly, I would mention that one of my favorite, Jobvite does a couple of reports on an annual basis. One of my favorite reports, and you'll tell me what it's called, is you probably lead, in my eyes, the marketplace in terms of telling people like Bridget and myself what a robust candidate funnel looks like across every company in your system. I can't remember what that's called, Kelly, but you do it on an annual basis where you show the flow through from the top of the funnel down based on all the data flowing through Jobvite. Super powerful. And for those of you on this call that haven't seen that, if you really kind of want to ramp up strategically, if you don't think you're at where you need to be, I would encourage you download, and Kelly will get this for us and we can send it out, but I would encourage you to download that report. And it's just a great look at a funnel across tens of thousands of jobs, and you see some real trends that jet out from that.
Yeah, a couple of our marketing team members are on the call, so I'll work with them to get that report shared out with the participants either in the chat here or if there's a better way to do it, we can get that shared out. And so I agree. I think you bring up a really good point, Kris, that we have more access to technology and data than we ever have in history, and that can feel overwhelming sometimes, but it's also something that's very powerful and very critical for recruiters to start to embrace. What would you say, let's, kind of pull on this thread of technology and data a little bit, what would you say, what advice would you give to the recruiters out there to make sure that they are understanding kind of how technology is going to be impacting their job and what types of skills they need to really start to focus on building in order to get really good at kind of understanding how they can utilize technology to become powerful recruiters?
Well, I'll jump in and I'll throw it to Bridget. I think, for an individual recruiter, Bridget touched on it at the top, right? Recruiting used to feel a lot more transactional than it does now. Mm-hmm. And if there's one thing we've learned throughout the last decade, this is going to continue. Transactions, like any way you define it, will continue to be taken away from recruiters. They'll be handled by technology. And really that means the better you are at your high touch points, from intake call with the hiring manager to presentation of candidates, whether you call that a submittal, the follow-up you do for feedback, all of that influencing, and some would call it leveraging to get the best possible outcome for your organization is super key because, it's interesting, and Bridget, I'll throw it to you on this, in the book, which is focused on HR, but it also applies to recruiting, someone who's used to, just from a behavioral perspective, and kind of migrates towards transactions is always going to go there because it feels good. Like you can do a transaction, you can do 10 transactions and know at the end of the day, look what I did, right? And a certain recruiter behaviorally is going to be drawn to that. But over time, Bridget, those transactions will continue to go away. You've already seen it and will continue to see that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I would say as a recruiter, don't be afraid of technology. Lean into it. And, my best recruiters are those that are open to using new tools to help them be more effective and to spend time with candidates. In fact, I just had a very hard role to fill, and we hired a candidate from Colorado Springs. And as this person accepted the job, he said, the reason I accepted is because of my interactions with Kimberly on your recruiting team. She was phenomenal. She was patient. She answered all my questions. She's so passionate about Roche. She truly cares about me. I feel like we have a connection, and you can't fake that. And so, she leverages tools and technology, but she also has amazing communication skills. She knows how to read people. She makes people feel important and valued. And all of those skills are really critical to a recruiter now and in the future.
That is a great point, Bridget. And when I was doing customer success for Canvas, I used to always tell the recruiters that were my customers that, most of us get into recruiting for that moment when you start to realize you can make an impact in someone's life through an opportunity that you're connecting them with. And when you think about the volume of people that might be applying or that you could have a conversation with, having those high-level conversations in volume, it's just not possible. And so you have to start using technology as your friend so that you can start to have more of those conversations with pre-qualified candidates lower down the recruiting funnel. And it's such an important point to remember that, we feel most fulfilled in our roles as recruiters, not when we're doing those transactional things that help us feel like we're busy and we're checking check boxes, but that's not why we got into recruiting in the first place. And so I think it's an important point that technology can help enable more productive conversations and also just higher touch for those candidates that they deserve. And so I think that's a critical kind of point when it comes to technology.
Another example just on this topic of technology is think about, recruiting and diversity recruiting and how critical it is for all of us. And I think about, the times where if I had an area that I was recruiting for and I was having a hard time, say, getting females through all the way through because it's a very physical job. I would go to the recruiting team and say, hey, we really need to focus on female diversity in our candidate slate. How can you help me with that? Or is there anything else that's going on that I should be aware of that I can help move the leaders and move the business? And, the recruiters came back and said, we did an analysis of the funnel over the last 6 months of these roles. And here's what's happening at every stage in the recruiting process where we may be losing candidates, which was so helpful to me because then I could say, well, what happens at that stage? What is the interview process or what's the assessment that's happening there? Because that may need to be reevaluated. So all of those insights that frankly, I didn't even ask for, the recruiting team came to me and said, this will be helpful in us identifying what some of the roadblocks are.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I think that from my perspective, those recruiters that embrace technology and they start to understand how consumers are embracing technology, and then they work on translating that into how they're connecting with their candidates, I think that that's a really important kind of aspect of kind of building that recruiter skill set for sure. So we actually have an audience question, and it's a good one. It's actually one that I wanted to dig into a little bit. So this is from Ashley Harper, and she says, hello, what advice do you have for recruiters in their relationship with marketing? We do not have a dedicated recruitment marketing function, and there can be tension between HR and marketing when deciding priority and responsibilities as we are both small departments. What do you guys think? Kris, do you want to weigh in on that first?
Yeah. So Ashley, it's a good question. What I would tell you is marketing is always going to be a little bit territorial with anything that they think falls under brand. The best way to approach that if both departments are small in my way is to start small. Don't think that you have to boil the ocean from an employer brand perspective and anything you want to do. I would tell you that think about your most critical, hard to fill positions that you want to get the story out. And I would start with maybe 3 career tracks that are really challenging for you and think about revamping your career site around something simple, like telling 4 to 5 stories in each career track and kind of developing a landing page that you could use your ATS to kind of like carve out jobs for that specific landing track as part of that. I think thinking small and telling stories in your most difficult, challenging to fill positions or your initiatives like DEI, like telling those stories is something that's really important. And by the way, and Bridget, I'll throw it to you with this, you and your team are probably best positioned to help tell those stories. You know who the people are that are doing great work in your company, more so than marketing. You know who the great people are, and we've got this thing, and I'm on the phone, so I won't grab it because I don't want to disconnect, but we've got this great thing called the smartphone that has a great video camera in it, and the tools are really available, whether it's short form video or short written stories. You can even do it in a Q&A fashion. So I would say start small, and Bridget, I'll let you add to that.
Yeah, it's such a great piece of advice. We did the exact same thing, and so even though we're Roche and we're bigger, we don't have a huge budget for recruiting marketing, and so what we did is we picked our hardest to fill roles, and we picked individuals in those roles, and we did a story on them. We added pictures just to really make them come to life. And we talked about the role. What's a day in the life of a field service engineer? Meet Molly. Molly works in the Northeast, and this is what her typical day looks like. And people read that, and it puts a human face, and it says, wow, that job sounds interesting. I want to do that. So it's a great idea that hardly costs anything. And then you just leverage social media to get your stories out.
Yeah, and Bridget, I would add to that, when you think about things like talent pools, the biggest problem we all have with talent pools that get created is having something to say. like on a periodic basis to those talent pools. There's a lot of talent pools that exist globally that don't really get communicated to because we don't have anything to say. So Ashley, if you think about that, it's a natural bridge into talent pools. I would take Bridget's advice, start with a project, 3 like career paths or groups of jobs that are most important to your organization. Tell 4 stories, 2 video, 2 written. Start with that, wireframe it out, get some help from marketing when you're ready to kind of develop the site, wrap jobs in that area. And then on a quarterly basis, have a plan to tell 1 more story for each one of those 3 or 4 career paths on a quarterly basis so you can keep refreshing it. And if you do your own kind of like landing page for those jobs on the website, something that simple, all of a sudden you give yourself and your fellow recruiters fodder that they can actually like send to candidates to say, look at these great people in your organization, just like you, doing great things.
Excellent advice from both of you. And I think that there is so much power also just in social media. And, you know, some of the small kind of high touch things that you can do for candidates often get shared out via social media. And, you know, we used to send care packages to some of our interns when they were studying for finals, and they would post those out on social media, and that's employment branding. You know, they are sharing out for you all of the things that you're doing to ensure that they're having a really good, you know, onboarding experience. And so I would say you leverage social media as well, and you know, really hone your ground game and do some of those high touch things that can really start spreading like wildfire and can really start to tell the story of kind of who you are as an organization. Excellent advice. So I am curious to hear from both of you what you guys feel differentiates the average recruiter from the awesome recruiter.
Bridget, I'll let you start. I went first the last time.
Yeah, I think really it is it's having that that business savvy. I mean, understanding that how important it is that you understand the business that you're supporting. You understand not just what we do, how we make money, how we support our clients, our patients, depending on what industry you're in, but really understanding the business. And so usually as I'm interviewing recruiters or HR business partners or, you know, anyone in HR, I say, tell me about the business you support. Tell me about the company, you know, that you work for, to really get an understanding of the depth of their knowledge there. That tells me everything I need to know within those first few minutes. If there is very little knowledge or very little curiosity about the business, then I really don't find that they will be an excellent recruiter. The other thing I would say is good communication skills. I know I touched on it earlier, but it's the ability to read people and to really listen. You know, again, how many of us have been on a phone call or an interview, been interviewing with someone, and you just feel they're just going down a checklist of questions, not really connecting with you and not really listening to you. And so it is developing a connection, whether it's over video, over phone, especially important these days, that they have those skills.
Yeah, and I would add to what Bridget said. I would take that and like provide kind of a grid, a 2x2 grid. And on the other side of what Bridget presented, I would say that we look at recruiting as sales. So we find that the behavioral profile of a great recruiter looks a lot like a salesperson. And for us, with what we do from a behavioral assessment perspective, that's high cognitive skills, so they're quick on their feet, right? Which means they can pivot along the lines of what Bridget said. We look for high assertiveness. And we also look, strangely enough, for people that think about individual results. Like at the end of the day, we like people who compete. So we like people who feel, not that they're bad teammates, but that they're comfortable with the scoreboard getting reset on a monthly basis. And they compete, they take it personally, and they want to be, I'll use Bridget's team, they want to be one of Bridget's top recruiters at Roche. So that's something that I would throw in there. And I think influencing skills are naturally a part of some of the things I just described as well. So we look at the behavioral side as well as the interview side.
Yeah, one that I would add that I forgot to mention is the ability to have difficult conversations, right? And so sometimes you need to lean into some conflict,
Right.
often with hiring managers. And so I think of some that, my recruiters have to talk about, the interview panel, who we're putting on the panel, who has the decision at the end of the day.
Right.
How are you incorporating all the feedback along the way from the interview panel? Things like diversity. Do we really have a diverse candidate slate? Have we set the candidate slate up for success so that everyone has an even playing field? Those conversations can be challenging, and the strongest, the best recruiters are the ones that have those conversations directly head on and get to the heart of the issue quickly.
Yeah, and we would tie that to assertiveness. So we would say if we did that behavioral assessment, we saw somebody around the midline or even lower from an assertive perspective, they can be a really good service provider, et cetera, et cetera. But to Bridget's point, they probably aren't going to have the same ability to be as aggressive and assertive as they need to be to have those difficult conversations, for sure.
Both excellent points. So shifting gears a little bit, I think this pandemic has, been really tough on the recruiting function. And I know several really amazing recruiters in my network are finding themselves looking for a job right now. What advice would you have for them, whether it's kind of networking advice, whether it's building their skills kind of while they're between gigs? How do they get themselves prepared to be marketable and to make sure that as they are moving into their next role, they're really positioning themselves for success?
So I'll start, Bridget. I think the first thing I would say, and I'll flip it to you pretty quickly, Bridget. We'll just go back and forth on this one a little bit. I think the first thing is don't forget what you already know related to effective job searches. Don't rely simply when the economy comes back a little bit on applying through a great engine like Jobvite. Don't feel like that's enough, right? You have to network down. You have to find people who might be the hiring manager in the organization. You've got to get their phone number. You've got to get their email address, and you've got to get in front of them. By doing that, that's really behavior that you use to get to great candidates. And a good hiring manager on the talent acquisition side is going to see that. By the way, and Bridget, I'll throw it to you with this, out of 50 applicants that we get for a recruiter position, we're lucky if one or two do that and try and find that person.
Yeah, I would say, again, you leverage your network. And, I'm just thinking of something creative that happened recently where a recruiter reached out and said, I saw that you're looking for, these two roles. I spent a couple of hours sourcing candidates that you might be interested in just to give you a sense for my work. And I thought, wow, that was really, that was interesting because I'm not paying this person. They don't know me. Some of the profiles they sent were spot on. And it definitely got my attention. So I would say be creative, but don't be annoying. Leverage your network and take Kris's advice. Don't just apply for roles and just sit and wait. You really have to work it. But attending things like this, because not only are you going to get to know Kris and myself and Kelly, but, I don't know if you have access to who all the other attendees are, but, any opportunity that you can to extend your network, I would say do that.
Awesome. So we have another couple audience questions. This question is from Heather. As we age in recruiting, we are often overlooked by companies when applying to new roles. Our comp is more expensive than the company wants to pay. How do you impress on your leadership that our skills are critical to the success of the organization?
You said Heather, right? That's from Heather? So,
Heather, yep.
Heather, I think with age comes a lot of experience. And so I would be interested in what would differentiate you from somebody that's earlier in career. You've had a lot of different experiences, a lot of tools in your tool belt. And I would say be really clear and articulate about what those things are that differentiate you. And for me personally, I really like a diverse team. So I like for there to be career mobility, career movement in a TA team. I like for there to be differentiated roles like talent scouts and recruiters and recruiting operations, so that people can work really effectively and work in their sweet spot. So really get good at knowing what you enjoy and what you're good at and be able to articulate what makes you stand out.
And I'll add to that, Bridget, by saying, Heather, be incredibly selfish about the recs you try and work in your company. So I'm assuming as you gain experience, you kind of have an understanding that these are maybe two areas that you'd love to go into with your company. All things being equal, you want to handle the recruiting and the relationships with those hiring managers, and you want to let them know in a very professional way across time that that department is super interesting to you, and you feel like you have a lot of portable skills into that department. When they have an opening, you'd love to be considered. Of course, make sure that your manager understands that you've expressed that interest as well. But I would tell you, be incredibly selfish with the recs you work on. If you really have interest in an area, go to Bridget or the managers who work for her in your company, whatever the equivalent is, and work in that area.
Great advice. Great advice. So we have, we actually are almost running out of time, believe it or not, and we have one final audience question that we will try to get to. This is from Joe. What about the number of managers, interviewers on the panel? I'm seeing a lot of panels with 7 to 15 people in the process. So what do you guys think about this? I'm seeing heads shaken.
It's incredible.
So what do you guys think?
Joe, 7 to 15 is a lot. I don't know what industry and sector you're working into. That's rival. I mean, getting up to 15. I'm not sure I've seen a panel that high. What I would tell you is I'm not typically, I understand panels. I'm not a huge fan of panels, and I'm certainly not a big fan of, I think a lot of groupthink comes from panels. And I think there's always going to be one alpha in a panel. And I think if you get 7 to 15 people, there's probably two alphas in the panel that'll take all the airtime, et cetera, et cetera. Bridget, I don't know how to solve Joe's problem. Do you?
Yeah, well, I don't know why 5 kind of has always stood out to me, no more than 5. And I think it is, you have to focus on the candidate experience. I mean, who wants to interview with 15 people, whether it's 15 people in a room at the same time or 15 different interviews? That's not a great experience. And so I would just say, who's the ultimate decision maker? And then who are the people that are really good at assessing talent and can represent the business or that function? And that's really all you need. And you want to make sure that it's a diverse panel, right? So that it's, again, you're thinking about the candidate experience, and you want the candidate to be able to come in and get to know your organization and say, I can see myself working here. I can see myself working alongside these people.
Hey, and yeah. Joe, I would add and say that, like, keep in mind, like, rules of engagement for panels, they differ from organization to organization. You don't want everybody on the panel to have the same weight and the same voice. You certainly want a diverse panel, and you want everything that Bridget described in terms of decision makers, but there should be a hiring manager on the panel, and you've got to set the right kind of mindset that hiring manager doesn't think that there has to be 100% consensus on a candidate in order for her or him to move forward. It's a big tripping point in organizations, and the more you and a leader like Bridget that you work for can get in front of that, like with kind of the rules of engagement, the better off you are, I think.
Great advice.
Awesome. Well, yep, that is awesome advice. And all good things must come to an end. We are unfortunately out of time. I cannot thank Bridget and Kris enough for joining us. You guys always have such great insight. I'm a fan of both of you, and you guys did not let us down. So thank you both for joining us. I'm going to do a few housekeeping items. So we'll say goodbye to Kris and Bridget. Thanks for being here. And we look forward to hearing more from you, and you can connect with them on LinkedIn, etc. So let me go ahead and start sharing my screen again. And let's go on to a couple housekeeping items. So just as a reminder that we are Jobvite. We build software that helps TA teams build their business. If you're interested in learning more about our suite of talent acquisition technology, you can visit our website at jobvite.com, and you can click one of the Watch Product Tour buttons to see it in action. And then just as a reminder, tomorrow you do not want to miss our demo day with Lacey. That's going to be great for learning how to collaborate and communicate with hiring managers using the Jobvite technology. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off and wish all of you an amazing rest of your day. Thanks a bunch, and have a great day.